From my blood come the prince that was promised, and his will be the song of ice and fire.
The burden of this knowledge. It is larger than the throne. It is larger than you.
The king chose Rhaenyra. The realm will not accept her.
Men would sooner put the realm to the torch than see a woman ascend the Iron Throne.
I will be queen of the Seven Kingdoms.
May do as you wish when I am cold in my grave.
Dreams didn't make us kings. Dragons did.
Let the people remember the ancient strength of House Targaryen.
No king has ever lived that hasn't had to forfeit the lives of a few to protect the many.
You are no conqueror. You are a plague.
Our houses are bound by a common cause.
Perhaps. But there will be blood.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my House of the Dragon Episode 2 trailer video. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs. They also include some footage from later episodes, too. So, it isn't just from Episode 2. We'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, I'm doing videos for all the episodes, just like my episodes for the original Game of Thrones series. Be sure to subscribe to get them all. We're also doing a giveaway for HBO Max subscriptions. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and just post all your theories and favorite moments from the trailer video. Careful for spoilers for episode 1 if you haven't seen it yet, because we have to address what happened during episode 1, how they ended things, because obviously that'll feed into what happens during episode 2, but there are some big time jumps, as you can see during the trailer footage. Like, you see both the younger versions of the actress in the trailer, but then also the much older ones way later in the timeline too. What I'll do is, because there's a lot of really big scenes here just broken up into a bunch of different pieces, is that I'll talk about the different scenes. We'll have to jump around in the trailer a little bit. They start the trailer with the voiceover from the younger version of Rhaenyra reading Aegon's prophecy, like his dragon dream, so to speak. They call it a dragon dream, like he had a dream about uniting the Seven Kingdoms to defend against the Long Night, these White Walkers that were coming. This is also a version of her just wearing plain clothes, kind of sneaking past the monument to Balerion the Black Dread that we just saw. And she talks about the prince who was promised. Like, she's literally talking about Jon Snow. So, we got a bunch of Daenerys references during episode 1. Like, they literally mentioned Daenerys Targaryen. Now they're starting to mention Jon Snow. The funny thing about this prophecy of the prince who was promised is that it's written as if Aegon the Conqueror wrote it himself, like from his perspective. And he talks about this eventual heir of his who will be the eventual prince who was promised. It's the same prophecy that Rhaegar Targaryen spoke of during the original Game of Thrones books, because as Viserys said during episode 1, it's a prophecy, like it's a secret that's passed from king to heir. Rhaegar Targaryen was the heir to the Mad King, so before the Mad King went mad, he would have told Rhaegar Targaryen about the Long Night in the Night King, and the prophecy of the prince who was promised. So that's why Rhaegar, when Jon Snow was busy being born, was talking about that prophecy. It's just that later in the timeline, when he was actually born, there was this added meaning. He himself was literally the Song of Ice and Fire. His mother, Lyanna Stark from the Frozen North, and his father, Rhaegar Targaryen of the Dragons. So during episode 2, we'll be talking a lot about Jon Snow. But the actual scene that they cut it on top of is taking place on Dragonstone later in the timeline. And this is the scene where you see the Kingsguard, some of the small council, Otto Hightower, coming to stop Daemon Targaryen, who has a dragon egg with Mysaria here. And you see a version of Rhaenyra flying on Syrax to try and stop them and help Daemon. Also, Daemon's dragon Caraxes nearby too. So it's like a really heated situation, like he even pulls his sword Dark Sister on the Kingsguard and Otto Hightower here. I think what's happening here is that Mysaria has gotten pregnant with Daemon's bastard, and he thinks that it's going to be another dragon rider, so he wants to give Mysaria a dragon egg so that the child will eventually bond with the dragon, become another dragon rider legit. But the whole thing is that dragon eggs to the Targaryens are more precious than gold, like the most precious resource. It'd be like giving a nuclear weapon to another person. Like, no, you're not allowed to give away dragon eggs to anybody you want. So what happened is Viserys found out what was happening, found out that he was stealing one, and sent them to stop him. Made him give back the dragon egg. Also, you have the idea that Rhaenyra Targaryen really cares about Daemon, Daemon really cares about Rhaenyra, so she kind of sides with him. So just more tensions escalating between the two sides that will eventually become the factions in the Dance of the Dragons. Just based on the rock here, it seems like somebody is trying to sneak into Dragonstone. You see more of Alicent Hightower meeting with King Viserys. I'm not sure which castle this is supposed to be because it looks kind of run down. There are a couple big castles that we haven't seen on the show yet for some of the really important characters that we'll probably see in the next couple of episodes, though. We see one of the Targaryens' boats. This dragon is Caraxes, Daemon's dragon. This is the younger version of Rhaenyra with Laenor Velaryon, Corlys Velaryon's oldest son. They tried to get them married, basically, so this is them just meeting near Driftmark. That's where this is taking place. Driftmark is the island right next to Dragonstone, the seat of House Velaryon. This is the older version of Rhaenyra. This could be from like episode 6, maybe a little bit after. I don't think it's from that late in the episodes. There are 10 episodes total, so like I don't think there's footage from like episode 9 or 10 or anything like that in this. It's not totally clear where she is in this scene because there's a couple different places that you see her, and most of them are all about the Black Council, basically her crowning herself Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. I'll get to that in a second because there's like one scene with her with the older version of Alicent and Criston Cole. Later in her life, she spent a lot of her time on Dragonstone, so that's why you see so many scenes of her on Dragonstone when she's older. This seems like it's the older version of Viserys coming to Dragonstone with the Kingsguard. This is younger Rhaenyra on Dragonstone. This scene of Rhaenyra talking to Rhaenys seems like it's happening relatively soon after the big ceremony where she's named the official heir. The other Lords of the Realm swear fealty to her. And I think she's trying to get real with her, like, look, they named you the heir, but there's no way that this is going to stick. It looks like we're going to go to the Great Sept at some point during this season. Then when you hear the older Rhaenyra say, I am going to be Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, you see all these people assembled inside the map table room in Dragonstone. It's like her version of the small council with all the people that swear fealty to her because things have really started to heat up in the actual Dance of the Dragons. Like there isn't actual battles between them happening right now, but this is like right at the beginning. Like it actually starts to get set off. Basically what winds up happening is that eventually her father does wind up dying. And because of a couple important things that happen, there's a lot of confusion over who the official heir is. Like, Alicent isn't sure if he wanted his new son. Like, we see her pregnant with Viserys' child, but they're not sure if he still wanted Rhaenyra to be queen. So there's all this confusion, and in the confusion, in defiance of all the craziness that's going on, Rhaenyra basically says, you know what, screw this, I'm queen. My father named me heir, I'm going to be queen. So it winds up pissing a bunch of people off, but like you see a couple familiar faces here, like you see some of the Kingsguard, some of them swear fealty to her, not all the Kingsguard, and a lot of the Velaryons because a lot of the marriages that will eventually wind up happening on the show. All the battle footage is from the War of the Stepstones. I don't know if it's going to be like one battle or a couple different battles because the actual War of the Stepstones, like this big battle with the Triarchy that they hyped up in episode 1, like the Triarchy is becoming a problem, this crab feeder figure, we should do something about it. The actual war against the Triarchy lasted for several years, so I think what they'll do is they'll have a couple different battles across a couple different episodes. But that's what's happening here. They're freeing victims that were tied up by Crab Feeder. He's called Crab Feeder because he tied them up in low tide so that the crabs would literally come in on high tide and feast on all the victims. You see older Alicent pull the Valyrian dagger off of her husband, King Viserys, push him to the ground, and then attack Rhaenyra with it. Obviously, Viserys is still alive during this, so the actual Dance of the Dragons hasn't begun. But it's just meant to show you how things just continually deteriorate between the two women that used to be the best of friends. This scene of older Rhaenyra and Daemon seems like after they eventually get remarried later in the timeline. A lot of stuff has to happen before we get to that point, so I'll just wait to talk about that till it actually happens in episodes. Like I said, this is a scene of the younger Alicent after she's been remarried to King Viserys. He's still very much alive. She's become pregnant with a new heir for him. It's a son named Aegon II. This scene of Rhaenyra looking down at all the knights here seems like it's relatively soon after the ceremony to name her the heir, where Criston Cole is being named to the Kingsguard. Like he's not wearing the Kingsguard armor yet. There's also this weird scene where you see Rhaenyra with her father Viserys, and the Valyrian dagger is in the fire there heating up, and later you see her seem like she stabs a dragon with the dagger. We see a bunch of dragon eggs in the trailer too. They might show us some more details about how they actually used to hatch dragons and how they started dragon bonding after they had been hatched. When Otto Hightower is talking to the older version of Alicent, I still think it's a little bit earlier in the timeline. This might have something to do with the War of the Stepstones, just because of the way the war was actually fought. He's talking to her about all this collateral damage happening. The War of the Stepstones was against the Triarchy and Crab Feeder, obviously. It took several years, but the whole idea is that the actual war wasn't fought with like the traditional king's army. Viserys did support the war with his gold, but it was mostly fought by Daemon Targaryen, his dragon Caraxes, the forces of House Velaryon and Corlys Velaryon, and a bunch of sellswords and landless adventurers. So it was sort of like this ragtag group and Corlys Velaryon's men fighting this giant war across several years in the Stepstones to try and stop this problem without the help of the rest of the realm. When we see Varys yelling at Daemon on the ground here, like he's just kind of sitting there taking it from him, I think the reason he's yelling at him about not being a conqueror is about what's happening in the Stepstones, because in the other trailer you see Daemon walking into the throne room with all the other lords, the rest of court assembled, wearing a crown himself. What ended up happening is their war against the Triarchy was successful, even though their forces were way smaller. But when they won all these battles, Daemon basically named himself king of the Stepstones and was crowned by Corlys Velaryon. So that's the crown that he's wearing here in the throne room. And it probably just winds up pissing off Viserys and a lot of the other lords, and that's probably why he's so mad here. But the other funny thing is there are like so many WTF things that Daemon Targaryen does to piss off Viserys throughout what'll probably happen during season 1, that this could be any of like 4 different things that he's yelling about, but I don't want to get too ahead of the trailer footage. There's a lot of really spicy stuff that we'll just wait to talk about till it actually happens in episodes. Speaking of which, at the wedding of Rhaenyra and Laenor Velaryon, Corlys Velaryon's oldest son, you actually see her staring at Criston Cole. That's because she has like a real big thing for him. It does not go well. I don't want to talk too much about Laenor Velaryon, but let's just say he's kind of like a Loras Tyrell type of figure. So it's not a super happy marriage for Rhaenyra, like she's forced to marry him by her father. When Corlys Velaryon says their houses are bound by common cause, that's probably just him agreeing with Viserys to marry their children together. Because right after that, you see some of their children actually standing together much later in the timeline. Like these 2 sons with the brown hair are Rhaenyra's sons. The 2 girls in the white hair are Velaryon twins. So like a lot of this trailer is meant to show you some of the shifting alliances and how the lines are basically split between the blacks and the greens, and things just slowly deteriorate just in general between different sides in this. But like we just had 1 episode of 10, so there's like a lot of stuff to come. So if you spotted any big Easter eggs that I haven't talked about in previous trailer videos, just write them below in the comments, or any big questions about the characters or what's going on, I'll just add them to my bonus videos. I'll name a giveaway winner the next time I post a House of the Dragon video. There's a bunch of big stuff that posted recently, so I'll try to get to that soon. My full House of the Dragon episode 2 video will post Sunday after the episode airs. Everyone click here for my full House of the Dragon episode 1 video and Game of Thrones Easter eggs, and click here for all my other House of the Dragon trailer videos. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.